Are you a lifelong fan of General Hospital?
Are you a new fan who wants to know more about the history of the show?
Do you enjoy talking about the show with others?
Do you find yourself yelling at the TV?
Is your self-care an hour a day in Port Charles?
If so, we invite you to join hosts
Amanda Kimmel
and Shannon Coach at the place where all the hidden conversations take place and secrets are revealed.
Meet us at Pier 54,
a General Hospital fan podcast.
Hi, welcome to the Port Charles 411. Today we are going to be sharing our interview with another podcast, Your Podcast or Mine, with host Sherry. We had a great conversation with her. We covered everything from General Hospital to how we do our podcast. We hope that you enjoy the conversation.
Welcome to Your Podcast or Mine, where the creative minds behind the mic are interviewed. Now, let's get things started. Here's your host, Sherry.
Welcome to another episode of Your Podcast or Mine. I'm Sherry, and today I'm speaking with Amanda Kimmel and Shannon Coach, the creative minds behind Pier 54, a General Hospital podcast. So thank you so much for being on today. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
I was really excited when we got in contact with each other because I've been a General Hospital fanatic. I kind of fell off a little while ago, but I just hopped back on the wagon again. But I've been a fan of General Hospital since I was my grandmother used to watch it and my mom. So, it was kind of ingrained in us. But I really started watching when I was about 10 and Noah Drake was on. So
Rick Springfield.
yeah. So, he was the first my first celebrity crush. So besides Cookie Monster, he was next. So
that's real life.
So I would come running home after school and watch General Hospital, and I was there for the pivotal moments, Luke and Laura's wedding, which you just did a recap on about a couple of weeks ago, about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, that I enjoyed listening to, and a couple of others. So before we get started, I wanted to let you guys know that I have 2 degrees of separation with one of the actors on General Hospital. Kelly Monaco, who plays Sam, Samantha McCall, grew up and went to high school with my sister, but also her stepsister worked with my mother. So there's a little tidbit of GH in there. So.
So cool. And you have 2 different connections, which is different. Yeah.
Yeah. So, we were, following her career too, because she finished up her high school in the Poconos where I grew up. She's from Philadelphia originally. That's where she was born and raised pretty much. But her last couple of years were in high school in the Poconos. So, there's some. And then she became a Playboy playmate and then, moved on to, I think she did a couple of movies and then she landed on GH and, she's been there ever since. So she's had a long and steady career with them, which is really cool too. So not many people last in the soap world in one place.
Nope.
So
she actually started on Port Charles, which was the spin-off series.
Yeah.
And when that ended, they brought her on, which is huge because, they wouldn't just do that for anybody. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's right. Sadly, I forgot about Port Charles' spinoff. My bad. Sorry.
No, neither of us actually ever watched it, but we've talked about the fact that we should probably find DVDs and watch it and do our Port Charles 411 about it. So that way we can address
it's a whole storyline that we have no idea about.
Right. So many.
Yeah, and I remember watching it too, but I completely forgot about it because there were so many. I grew up in the Ryan's Hope, and there was one called, I think it was called The City. I was an average ABC soap a watcher. So I was all about All My Children, One Life to Live, and General Hospital. And General Hospital is the only one that's remained, sadly. But okay, well, before, see, I told you I was really like passionate about General Hospital. So let's talk about you guys and the podcast. So now that everyone knows that Pier 54 is about General Hospital, how did the both of you meet each other? How did the project begin?
It was really something that we kicked around for a while. We were both Girl Scout moms together, and at meetings we would sit and talk about whatever had happened, in the previous week. And we just kind of joked around like, oh, we should share our opinions with the rest of the world. We should start a podcast. And then finally this year, it was like 3 weeks before the anniversary, and Shannon was like, we're doing it. Come on, come over here, and we're going to record this. And that's how it all started.
And it was the name that hung us up because we couldn't think of what to name it. And one day it just popped in my head that they always have their little secret conversations and, all that. The secretive stuff happens down on the pier. And so we did Pier 54.
That's great. And yes, you're right. That like all of the, evil doings take place at the pier.
We actually had the pleasure of speaking with Bradford Anderson, who plays Spinelli. And when we told him the name of our podcast, he goes, "Where everyone dies?" And I'm like, "Oh man, we didn't think about that."
So, what brought you into podcasting? Was there a specific podcast that you were listening to, or was it something that was like, always in the back of your mind that you wanted to do? Did you have broadcasting experience before, or what compelled you to start podcasting?
I think that so we would always text back and forth, and we thought we were funny. And we thought, we just liked the things that we would say. And we're like, if we wrote the show, blah, 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 blah. And I think we just kept trying to think of different ways that we could do it. And then my husband actually has a podcast. Can I give him a quick plug?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I always ask at the end of, close to the end, like, what are your favorite podcasts to listen to and why? You could certainly plug it now, or you could wait until later. It's entirely up to you.
I'll just give him a quick plug. He has a wrestling podcast called Ring the Bell Radio, and he and his friends kind of started the same way, where they would just get together and talk about wrestling from when they were kids and stuff like that. And he kind of encouraged us, I guess, to consider podcasting because neither one of us really want to do anything visual because we're both moms and we don't want to have to look nice all the time. We want to be able to. Like last week I had surgery and we were still able to, 2 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And, we were still able to record and I was a wrapped up hot mess, but thank you for no visual of podcasting. So it's good. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I right now I'm in my PJs, so and no one has to see, except for the cats sitting by my side. They're like but no one else has to see my animal print pajama pants. So that's okay. Or my hair's up in a bun. Like that's the great thing about it. You could do it anywhere, anytime, and and that's what I hear from a lot of people. Like, you don't have to, dress up fancy. You could just, sit down at your computer with slippers on and, nothing much else if you don't want to.
Well, no, it doesn't matter if you're on a podcast because they don't see you.
Right.
It's better than
exactly.
A webinar.
So your podcast is bi-weekly, right?
Yes.
Do you generally release them on certain days, or is there no rhyme or reason? It's just whenever you could get it out, or is it like a specific day, like Tuesday and Thursday?
Monday's the weekly recap where we just talk about what happened the previous week, and we timed it like that so that people could binge watch over the weekend and get all their episodes in, so we are kind of all on the same page
and not doing spoilers because we don't do spoilers.
Right.
We try not to.
Do.
I don't think we've done one yet, but we've had it happen to us.
Yes. And then Thursday's the 411, which is just kind of more relaxed. We pick a topic and kind of go over it, give some history, or if there's a character that everyone knows is coming back or has been on screen, 1 or 2 days, but other people may not know who that was, if you're a newer watcher or whatever, then we can talk about where they started and why they're coming back and what role they might play now that they're back on the scene.
And we've done some things with our audience where we just recently did a what if episode, and so we put it out on social media and said, if you could have changed a storyline, what would you do? Like, what would you do if you were a writer? And we had some really good responses, and there's a big controversy right now that Drew Kane just died and all this stuff, and we mentioned that because it's a new current storyline. But, I mean, there were some people who went back to the 70s and were like, if this changed, here's how everything would have changed afterwards. And it was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the thing about soap operas is that people can come back to life, in mysterious ways,
Yep.
That's a great part about it, but going back to like the nuts and bolts of the podcast, like what type of equipment do you use to record and edit your show? Is it, do you use a specific program or programs to do that?
Well, we use Anchor FM as our hosting platform, which we started with another platform, and Anchor just seems more user-friendly and easier. They get it out. They distributed it to over 12 platforms, I think, for us, whereas the other one we had to do everything manually. But in terms of recording, we use my husband's computer and a program called WavePad, and that's where we do the editing. And we haven't bought a microphone yet. We started with a microphone, but we actually found that the sound quality was better through the microphone on my husband's computer. So he has a better computer than I do. He's a graphic designer and does all that fun stuff. So he has the more techie computer than I do.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's cool. So like you mentioned, you're a fairly new podcast, and there's been a lot of stories about Podfeed. So what are your thoughts on it, and how do you avoid it? How do you keep everything fresh?
I think that we have a really unique aspect where the show is on year-round, 5 days a week, whenever we're not being preempted by political stuff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We just wound up having to push back 2 days because of that. I think that really helps, and the fact that the show's been on we're in our 57th season. So even for our 411 episode on Thursdays, we have a lot of information that we can go back to.
Right. No, It's easier. With a fresh storyline every week, obviously there's new information to deal with then. If you were doing a show that only runs the main season, then you'd be stuck the other months. So General Hospital's just easier to do in that way.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, what do you guys do personally, like as far as keeping yourself, eager to do the show? Is it just the love of the show and the love of podcasting, or do you take time to like just walk away from the computer and live your lives and not worry about the stats so much?
So it's a 50-50 split.
Right. Yeah, no, it's 50-50. Some weeks, obviously there's some weeks that are super interesting, and so we're watching it every night and trying to stay caught up just because we don't want to miss it, and it's so exciting. Then there's other weeks that tend to lag some, and so if we're recording on Sunday night, both of us will be like, I just finished a half hour before we were supposed to record, and you just kind of push through because you want to talk about everything, the following day. But I think we both just love the show. We both watched it, like you said. We started with our grandmas or our moms from the age of like 7, 8, 9, and then got into it ourselves as we were young adults. And
that's how we became friends, because it was just by accident. Like, I think we were sitting at opposite ends of the table at Girl Scouts, and she was like, you watch General Hospital? And then we suddenly started texting each other, and then it just became a thing. In terms of stats and everything, I'm way more of a nerd than Amanda is.
Oh, yeah.
But I will screenshot her the stats all the time. But we've had some really good growth. But I'm just a nerd. So we'll just do it. We'll just say it that way. Like, I pay attention to So we release every Monday and Thursday at 6 a.m. And then I make the audiograms and launch them on social media. And I've been playing with, okay, which time of day do I notice that more people watch the audiogram? Is there actually a spike in listeners? You know, if you plan it for around lunchtime or it's like 10 minutes beforehand when people are like, okay, it's 10 minutes to lunch, you know, what's on social media, maybe we can get, because we try to keep the show to about a half hour too, because we want to be drive to the office friendly, lunchtime friendly.
Yeah.
And mom friendly,
you
because
know.
we have kids between us, so we don't get a lot of time ourselves.
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of people, like the commute is the perfect time to listen to a podcast. So
yep.
I tend to agree with that. I mean, there are some topics, however, where, or some conversations where you get wrapped up and it's like an hour and 20 minutes and it's like, oh boy, well, we've got to keep this in because there's it's so good that we can't not talk about it. So.
Exactly. And those are the exceptions. You know, I mean, we've definitely done it.
Oh, yeah.
But, you know, for the most part, we try to do it. Yeah,
yeah. So as far as podcasting, what would you say is a common myth about it? Is there anything that you could share with people that, about podcasting that people think that is true about it, but it really isn't?
I would guess just the difficulty of getting it out there. Like before we started, we had no idea how to do it. If it wouldn't be for the fact that Shannon's husband had done it for so long, I think it would have taken us another year to get started. And it was a lot simpler than what we both thought that it was going to be. I have the easy side because Shannon is a nerd and likes to play with all the tech stuff and does all the editing. But even that, the first time that she edited, I thought it was going to take her days. And she was like, no, it was 10 minutes. I cut this stuff out and we're done.
Minutes.
It was. And you made it sound amazing. She does a great job editing.
It was definitely not. We've improved, though, too. See, I would say the flip side where people think it's easier than it really is just because, you do have to pay attention to things. So, I mean, there's been times where we'll have we'll have conversations during it, and we have to look back and say, okay, we knew what we were talking about, but is that going to translate to the audience? I'm struggling with how to answer the question because there are so many. I think.
Well, I think I think what I'm getting out of it is that, there might be some instances where it might be an inside, not joke necessarily, but you two know what you're talking about. And do you keep it in for posterity because it's a great conversation, or do you edit it out because people might disconnect from that? Is
right,
that
right? And
okay.
Where's the fine line? I mean, how far can we venture off from storyline? Because so at the end of our podcast, we do what's called the reality check, and that came from the fact that we would keep sidelining. And finally, we were like, no, you know what? Let's give ourselves a designated section of the podcast to talk about ourselves. But I think also that people think that maybe podcasting, you make a lot of money really quickly, and you don't. Don't want to assume, but I'm sure you know that. I mean, it's definitely hard work. It's not just my friend and I getting together for a half hour a week and we're raking in thousands of dollars. It's hard work. It's like anything else. It's
and it mainly costs people money. You don't really earn money. It costs you're spending a little bit more out of your pocket than you like even if you're creating a free website, there's still if you're going to get a microphone or if you're going to try to upgrade a little bit, there's going to be some monetary factors in there for you, and you're not going to get money thrown at you. No. That's a common misconception. I wish it was that easy, but I agree with that too. I mean, unless you're real, and a lot of people focus on monetizing and stuff, and I'm just not like into that too much, really, because I am like really my own boss, so I really don't want to answer to a sponsor. Not that I would like deny a sponsor, but I kind of want to keep it my own way and not have to answer to a network or anything like that too. So I don't know. I guess I'm stubborn in that respect, but.
Well, no, because it's your time. It's it's what you're passionate about. So you want to make sure that, and I think that's integrity, that you're not willing to sacrifice your quality just to make $1.
Right.
You want to stay true to your vision and everything, and it's working.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. So, well, okay. Why don't we turn back to some General Hospital conversation before we get back into the podcasting part about it? Have you watched many of the shows in I don't know what decade you started watching General Hospital. I probably started in the 70s, because it late 70s, early 80s is when I really started watching it and paying attention to it. Although it was in my house, probably ever since I was born. What and in the 80s, it was all about the music. We mentioned Noah Drake and Rick Springfield, that connection, but also Frisco Jones. He was a big music. Jack Wagner, and even Blackie, who was played by John Stamos. He was in a rock band, I think, too. So, but they also put out a disco kind of song around the Luke and Laura era called General Hospi-Tale. I don't know if you guys have ever heard that song before.
I haven't. No.
Yeah,
you
gotta. Yeah, YouTube it. It's amazing. It's very Luke and Laura and the Cassadines and stuff like that. So, but it was all about the 80s and music and stuff like that. So that was really appealing to me too. But I think out of all the storylines, my favorite was Luke and Laura. And the Cassadines and the WSB with Robert and Anna and Tiffany and Sean. Do you have any favorite all-time storylines from the soap?
I started really paying attention probably around 88. It would have been, and same as you said, I loved Tiffany and Sean. Those storylines with them were amazing, and he had that cool secret back room in his penthouse where you could see all the monitors and everything, and I thought that was the coolest thing ever. And then moving forward, probably my favorite storyline was when Karen and Jagger were on, and that was whenever Robin was involved with Stone and the whole HIV storyline came out. That's probably my most favorite storyline. I loved Karen and Jagger.
And then Amanda's just a couple years older than me, and it's funny because we never really think about it until we start talking about things like this, because and I think we both grew up in the same kind of household where it was always on, our moms watched it and we would catch it when we could. But then I think it's when you hit high school is when you can really watch it because you get home in time for it.
Right.
And so I started really paying attention more in the early 90s. And I think that when Luke and Laura came back and they had Lucky, was, that's just, it's something that I just always remember, with the Lucky and Liz. And I guess it sounds like our first storylines are our favorites because they're the ones that got us hooked.
Right.
So
yeah,
on our yeah.
Well, I think I started getting hooked around the Noah Drake, Bobby Spencer stuff, but really Luke and Laura, and her previous marriage with Scotty, that was really when it started to pull me in a little bit. And and then the divorce with Scotty and Luke and all of that. But what really I think the Cassadines with Elizabeth Taylor in that role was just crazy good. So and like you mentioned with the Cassidines with, the ice, the the thing with the ice freezing over the city and stuff like that, like that was really, and I was really, involved with like when Luke and Laura came back, I was like, like all interested in it again, and Lucky and the Robin Scorpio, storyline too. But, coming up to like current times, like I'm conflicted because I love Anna and Robert together, and I'm still trying to, I guess, convince myself that Anna's good with her new guy, but I still want to see Robert and Anna together. I don't know. That's just me. That's just me, I guess.
Yeah,
but
no, we have that conversation all the time because Shannon is a big Finn fan, and so she loves Anna and Finn together. And I'm with you. I like the classic old school. Her and Robert should still be together, and that's the way that it should be. So we have that argument often.
I like them together. Like Finn and Anna, I think they're good. But I was a Faden fan, so like I liked Finn and Hayden, but then she blew that up. So.
So
we're gonna make that a shirt.
Yeah, and you do have merchandise too. Why don't you, listeners, about that? I mean, I have it like in my saved list to get something off of there, whether it's a mug or a T-shirt. But you do have merchandise available with some different statements on there too. So what do you have available?
So we have tank tops, hoodies, T-shirts, 3/4 length shirts, cell phone covers, coffee mugs, pillows. We're going to be having blankets soon and stickers. And we have a list of things that we want to have, but we have a couple that say, I'd rather be watching General Hospital. I'd rather be in Port Charles. GH is my self-care, which that actually came from one of our podcasts because we were just talking about how it really is. Like, it's our little escape, and it's supposed to be fun, and it is. It's our self-care. It's our little time away from the world.
Yeah. So getting back to podcasting, how has podcasting improved or changed your life?
I think it's improved and changed mine just because you have to take the time out to do it. It's a priority to get it done on the time schedule that we have. And that makes me take time out from life to get caught up on the show and to have this girl time with Shannon. I mean, as much as it is work to get it out on time and, do all of that side of it, at the end of the day, the conversations are our real conversations. We make a point not to text each other back and forth through the week about the storylines. So what everyone's hearing is our actual reaction to, oh, my gosh, I didn't think about that, or what did you feel about this, or I can't believe they were that stupid, or whatever. It's not rehearsed. It's not something to be, discussed. Those are our true reactions to everything. And so it's just really fun to get that girl time together and to talk about it.
Yep, and we do the same thing with the Port Charles 411. Like, we divide up the research, and then as the other one is giving their research, I won't have read what she was doing. So, I might not understand a part of my own research because it was prefaced in hers, but then I'm like, oh, that makes sense, and you'll hear about that later. But same thing as Amanda, it's our time, it's my me thing. It's fun.
Yeah, it's your me time. It's it's your escapism from the rest of the real scary world out there. So.
Don't you hate when you're listening to a great podcast and suddenly you're interrupted by an ad? I know! Thank goodness Stitcher lets us listen to our favorite podcasts like Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend, My Favorite Murder, and many more ad-free for only $4.99 a month or $34.99 a year. Go to Stitcher.com/premium to sign up today. Use promo code PEER54 for 1 month free on us.
Do you have an idea for a podcast but don't know where to start?
Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Anchor is such an easy way to record and edit a podcast, and you can do it from either your phone or computer. Best part is you don't have to worry about getting it out there. Anchor distributes to many platforms, so you can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and many more. You can start making money right away without having a minimum number of listeners, too. Anchor really is everything that you need to make a podcast all in one place.
Are there any resources that have helped you on your way? I know you said that your husband has a podcast, so I'm sure he provided some helpful hints or pointers for you.
So there's a couple, we're in that Facebook group together, and so that's She Podcasts, and then there's Anchor has a podcast room too. That's been helpful, but honestly, I think the She Podcast group has been really, really helpful because everyone's basically just brainstorming in there, and really there to help each other and just trying to connect with other podcasters, I think has been probably the most beneficial. People, it's amazing how free people are with their time and their knowledge, and Google.
Yeah, and I think podcasters are, generally very supportive of each other too.
Yeah.
So what do you wish you had known when you started out?
Ooh, wow, that's a hard question.
I don't know. Because we thought about it for so long. I think that we're still figuring things out too, because we're always learning new things. I don't know.
Well, it's a learning process. I'm still learning too. So, I've only been podcasting since August, the end of August, and I'm trying to find new ways to do things and to market, and to make the show better. You always try to, without, losing the integrity of the show that you started. I think everyone, always wants to improve what they're doing. I think it's just like any other thing, like even being a parent or, working at a 9-to-5 job, you always want to make sure that you still have what you want and keep it going and keep it going smooth. So, but
I agree with that because I think that we kind of just dove right in once we finally had the name and everything, but it's real easy to get stuck in the analysis paralysis where, I've seen people posting in the Facebook group saying, I have 5 episodes recorded, I have all this stuff all set up for launch, and we did no pre-launch.
No.
It was just, we didn't do any teasers, we didn't do any lead up to it, so I guess maybe that we would have gone back and, done the teasers and the soft trials and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, we just kind of dove in and went, and that is totally out of character for me. So, but it was March and the show started on April 1st, and I was like, ooh, that would be perfect because that's a Monday and we can start on April 1st, which is the anniversary of the show. So we have to do this. And
yeah, I think it just all came together the way it was supposed to.
And we do tweak it so we don't get so stuck in things that we're not open to change.
Right.
So.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm, quite impressed with that, just jumping in and knowing what you want. And that's a good thing. I jumped in and I had no idea what I was doing. I was just like, okay, let's do a belly flop. Let's see where this goes, So.
For your show, because your show is so different. Because when I was first looking at it, I'm like, wait, she does a podcast about podcasts. That's awesome.
Yeah, and when I was recovering from a surgery, and I was like, what can I do that's different? Because I had done a music podcast in the past, and I was like, what can I do that is different? And I'm like, oh, okay, let's do a podcast about podcasts, because I love podcasts. And I like to know, like, the nuts and bolts around, like, what makes things tick. So I'm like, okay, let me start that. And I was like, okay, well, there can't be too many shows about this. Like, let me do some research. And I didn't find any, but, like, as I'm moving ahead, I find that there are more and more podcasts about podcasting, whether it's the technical side or the interviewing other podcast side. And I'm like, oh, well, I guess I'm not the only one out there. So, but that's good. I mean, I love all podcasts. I don't, the more the merrier, I'm part of the She Podcast group myself, and forgive me for saying this, but there was someone earlier today that had posted something about being in competition with another podcast. So I chimed in and said something about, to the effect, like, podcasting isn't about being competitive, whether it's marketing or not marketing. It's not a competitive sport like football. It's like a community of people that are fostering. Like, you could be as niche as you want, but it's not everyone's
Right.
gonna listen to your podcast.
Right. Well, I mean, how many true crime podcasts are there? There's a ton.
Yeah, like, oh, sorry, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. I was just going to say, I'm like, there's a ton, and they all seem to be doing well because people resonate with the host, and you're either going to like a certain personality or you're not. And,
Yeah, I mean, there are like over 770,000 podcasts. It's closing in on 1 million. It'll probably be up to 1 million by, end of the year or beginning of next year, because I think a lot of people go into podcasting thinking, like you mentioned earlier, like it's going to be a quick buck, and it's not that at all. It's because people love talking about what they love talking about, whether it's a soap opera like General Hospital, or if it's like a show about happy hour history or zoo archaeology, or I don't know, whatever. But there's a niche for everyone, and like you said, there's plenty of different personalities for each kind of genre that you're looking for. So that's my thought on it. But I think that the podcasting groups are very, very supportive of each other, and when someone new comes in and chimes in and asks a question, they're not turned away. They're embraced, and they're
right.
fostered by people that have been doing it for a while. So I really appreciate that too. So
yeah, it's hard because, I mean, it's like an emotional support group almost, because, and I love that we all celebrate, hey, I just got 500 downloads versus I just got 5,000, or 50,000, it's, everyone celebrates everyone's things.
Yeah. So,
milestones. Word I was looking for. Milestones.
So, moving forward, if you could have dinner with any 3 characters from General Hospital, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Do you want the actors or the actors?
The characters.
Okay. Do you have yours?
Shannon's looking at me like, you go first.
Do you want me to go first? Do you want me to go first, and then you guys could chime in after that?
Perfect. Go ahead.
Okay. Mine would be Lila Quartermain, Anna Devane, and Jasper Jacks.
Oh.
Yeah.
They don't even need to have a conversation with Jack.
No.
Just sit there and look at him the whole time.
Hi.
I know. I know, exactly. But and I was like floating Noah Drake too and Robert Scorpio because I love both of their characters. But there's something about Jasper, man. I don't know. But I feel like Jasper can handle a table full of women too. So.
Yes. Yeah. Do you want to go or do you want me to go?
I'll go.
Okay.
Mine would be Jagger, because like I said, that was the storyline, him and Karen, that got me hooked in the very beginning. And I feel like it would be a good conversation about, the storyline from back then, but also he's just amazing to look at also. And probably Lila also, because she has all of the history. She knows everything. And she was just so sweet and kind-hearted. And yes, so that would be just a fun to hear all her knowledge and the love for everyone. And then, wow, this is harder than I thought.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, probably Sonny, because I love Sonny and I love both his character on screen and then what I know of him personally with his mental health struggles and the way that interlaps into his storyline, and that kind of hits close to home. There's some mental illness in my life. And so I think it's amazing the way that he's taken it from his personal life into the storyline and given a realistic view of the issues that bipolar people struggle with. So I think that would be an awesome one.
Yeah. I have to agree with that. And also to interject about Lila, she was really, I loved her, and she's a very endearing character, but when Edward got out of hand, she would put him back into place, man.
Yes.
So I think the three of us are all dinner with Lila because she was one of the first ones that I thought of on my list. So I'll just be having dinner with you, Amanda.
Okay.
Because Sunny was also on mine for the same, and that's also something that Amanda and I connected over is the mental health issues in our personal lives. So Sunny and Maurice, have a really soft spot in lives. So I will do different though. So I'm sticking with Lila. I'll let you have Sunny.
Thank you.
Because I know that we're going to be sitting in the next table. And Luke, just because he is so Luke, it would just be such an interesting.
You would never know where the conversation was going to go.
No. And
see, that third one's hard. Making that final
decision
is hard.
Oh, my gosh. Okay, I said Lila and Luke. So let's go with, oh, my gosh, there are so many. I'll just go with Finn because he's my current obsession. So.
Okay. Well, I have to interject about Sonny because I love Sonny and Maurice Bernard. He's a great character, and the current storyline that's going on with Mike, I bawled my eyes out with just one of the recent. One of the recent scenes, and I just cried my eyes out over that, because he's battling Alzheimer's, and it's just a very tough, it's a tough situation to be in, and I've been in that situation personally, so it affected me, in ways that I never thought. Like I right now I'm crying like over ASPCA commercials and St. Jude commercials too. So it's not a surprise like something like that would affect me too. But I think it was someone who came to visit him that said goodbye. I can't remember.
Was it the Thanksgiving episode?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Where it was Stella. She was one of the nurses. She's been gone for a little while, and she came back, and he didn't know who she was.
Yeah, was that Stella? Was that her name?
Yep. And that's one thing that we've talked about a few times on our show, and that we're actually going to try to figure out when to do a 411 about it, because they really do a lot of justice to a lot of social issues. But the HIV, you know, they've handled the mental health. You know, for a couple years, they would always have someone, they would raise awareness about Shriners.
Yes.
You know, I mean, they really do incorporate a lot of real life social causes that to bring awareness to that can help people. And that's one thing. And, you know, and because Max Gail won one of the daytime Emmys last year for his portrayal of Mike Corbin. And at first when he was recast, when he came back, we're like, oh, it's not Mike. It's not the Mike that we know. Max Gail is killing it, you know, and he's doing such a good job at this storyline.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, the Nurses' Ball was, you know, was created basically for like the AIDS awareness with you know, Robin Scorpio in mind, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, correct. Yep.
And it's such it's such like an iconic episode. Like every year, people come back to watch, even the ones that, you know, have stopped watching, they stop everything and tune into the Nurses' Ball because it's such a, you know, a iconic episode that people just, you know, have to, you know, stop to take a look at it, and
Absolutely.
And the memory of every, you know, of everyone involved is brought back. You know, they talk about memories and things of that nature. So all of the other social causes that you were speaking about too, I think that it's very important, and I'm glad that they are in the forefront of bringing that to, you know, people think of soap operas as light and fluffy, and, you know, these things that they talk about really aren't, and so I'm glad that they put it in the spotlight.
Yep,
so.
Absolutely.
So, Jasper Jax, or Jax as he's known, is one of my favorites too. So when he came back, you know, when he always reappears, I'm like, it always piques my interest. So
that was awesome, because that was actually one of the spoilers that we got, because I was scrolling through Instagram, and so like there's a lot of accounts on Instagram that show old clips, and so I thought it was just an old clip, and it was Jax and Carly like fighting or something like that, and suddenly he like turned off the TV and turned around and said, "I'm coming back." And I immediately sent it to Amanda. I was like, "You're getting a spoiler, sorry," because it was such a cool promo for him to announce, like the way that he did it. But yeah, he's a good one. Not a lot
so
to leave again.
Have you connected with any? You mentioned that you did do an interview with one of the stars on General Hospital. And have you connected with anyone else involved in the soap opera, like producers or directors or writers or any other stars for that matter, to come onto your show, or are there like bucket list guests that you would like to have?
So we actually have an episode coming out on December 5th, so that's tomorrow from when we're recording. I'm not sure when you're releasing this. We interviewed Sean Kanan, who played AJ Quartermain.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, and he was great to talk with. I think that both of us really, really, really want to somehow connect with Maurice. We have, I think we have our bucket list. Who would be the one person that you want? Really, really, other than Maurice. Study is off the table.
So hard. So difficult. I think I would go old school and do Robert and Anna.
Okay.
I
Tristan Rogers and
Olivia. Right. I would want them together. So I feel like they're like best friends in real life. I don't know that they are, but that's the impression. They act so well together, and they've been on the show for so long together, off and on, that it would be neat to hear them interact, you know, at the same time, not just individually.
Right.
So that would be my bucket list.
I think I'd want to talk to Jeannie Francis.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because she just seems so, she's kind of like Lila. You know, she's super kind, but man, you do not cross her. But I feel like Jeannie Francis is very calm and reserved. So I would really enjoy talking with her.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Well, I remember you had mentioned Luke and Robert. There was a great scene with them that they were at. I think they were at Ruby's, or they were at a bar somewhere, and they were both like drunk out of their skulls. And I think Robert had said to Luke, "I need you to call me a cab," and Luke said, "You're a cab," and they just started like cracking up laughing. That's one scene that always stays with me, and I think it was like in the 90s. It was just like it's just a fun, funny scene between the two of them. So seeing those two interact with each other is like outside of the soap opera world and real life, you always wonder how they interact with each other, so.
Right, and I think that it's great. I think that you can tell who loves working together, because, I mean, they have the chemistry. You see them breaking a little bit whenever they are catching someone doing something, you can tell, I think.
Mm-hmm. So, about podcasts, are there any of yours that are your favorites that you listen to? Besides like out of your genre of soap operas. So do you have any that you go back to all the time to listen to?
That's all you, Shannon. I am awful and don't listen to that many, just because I feel like the car is the perfect place to listen to them, and I'm never in the car by myself. I always have my children with me and through everything, and so I really don't get to listen as much as I do. Shannon will suggest some here and there, and I'll catch a couple episodes, but I really haven't, dove deep into any of them because I know that I'm going to get addicted, and I just don't have the quiet time for that right now.
You will once they're older, because my kids are all older. You have the spread.
Yes.
So I'm a real estate agent, so I'm in my car all the time, so I'm either listening to podcasts or audiobooks. I'll give them a little plug. Bradford Anderson and Steve Burton have the podcast That's Awesome. So that's Jason and Spinelli. And it's great because they interview a lot of their coworkers. And so it's fun for us that we get to kind of see them interact, how you were just talking about, their relationships off screen. And it's fun because sometimes they don't even know anything about the person that they're bringing in, because you think that they all know each other, but they don't, because if they don't have scenes together, they're not even in the building at the same time.
And they don't watch the show, so they know nothing about stories.
Except for William DeVry does, because he just tweeted to me. So that's Julian. We just had a whole conversation on Twitter the other day. But so I'll give them that. I'm a bad wife and don't listen to my husband's because I listen to him recording it. So I feel bad, but I'm still going to say Ring the Bell Radio is a great wrestling podcast if you're a wrestling fan. My Favorite Murder is one of my favorites. And I listen to a lot of true crime. But I also like a lot of business podcasts too, because as we talked about earlier, I am a nerd, and I just like to know the story behind things. So there's one right now that I'm addicted to called Business Wars, and they basically take two companies it's like Coke and Pepsi, and they'll basically give you the history of how Coke and Pepsi started, how the rivalry started, and the different things that they've done over the past couple years. And it's like a 5-6 part series. And so they've done it with McDonald's and Burger King, eBay and something else, airlines, all that. So yeah, super nerd. That should be my new podcast. Super nerd. But then I listen to real estate ones too. So I mean yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there's a niche for like everything. So, I mean, there are real estate, like the Business Wars. That sounds really cool. I'll have to look for that. And I'm sorry, I didn't catch what is the name of the first one that you mentioned?
So it's called That's Awesome with Steve and Bradford.
Okay.
Because they say that's awesome all the time in the show. It used to be called the Stone Cold and Jackal Show, but they changed it because, so on the show and General Hospital people all associate Stone Cold with Steve Burton, Jason Morgan, but the other 95% of the world associates it with Stone Cold Steve Austin. And so they didn't want to be confused because I guess he also has a podcast. And so they decided to change it to Stephen Bradford, that's awesome.
Uh-huh. Well, I'll have to look for that. That's pretty neat.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And that's pretty much how it came about, yeah.
So, if you could step in my shoes, what would you have asked that I didn't?
I don't know. I think you had a lot of great questions. I mean, I really, honestly, we're both staring at each other like, I honestly don't know, because, I mean, you covered how did we get started, how do we know each other, right? Yeah, I mean, you really covered a good mix of personal and business and podcasting and whatnot.
Okay. Okay, I always ask that because I may have missed something, so I always ask that. So how can people find your podcast on social media and ultimately listen to your podcast?
So we do have a website. It's pier54podcast.com. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can just search for Pier54 Podcast, and it'll pop up. And we are on Anchor. We're on like 12 different platforms. We're also on iHeartRadio. Mm-hmm. So, and, you know, Stitcher, Spotify, iTunes. Oh, yeah. I'm not an Apple person, so I kind of forget about Apple. Apple and Microsoft is another story on the Business Force. And, yeah, so just Pier54 Podcast we have the show up on there, and it directs you to, you know, you can pick whichever platform you want, but if you search on any platform player, you should be able to find it.
Okay, great. And do you have any closing thoughts that you'd like to share to people listening to this podcast who are just discovering yours, or people who have been following your podcast? Any closing words or thoughts or?
Thank you if you're already listening. Right. And I guess just if you're a fan of General Hospital, so we don't do spoilers. We don't get into the relationship wars, you know, things like that. Because
we just try to keep it fun. It's supposed to be about just enjoying the show and the enjoyment that we both get out of that, and just kind of sharing that with everyone. We have the conversations we imagine everyone else would have with their girlfriends if they were sitting around watching General Hospital.
Yeah. And I guess, I mean, we have fun engaging with people on social media, so we're pretty frequently, we throw out questions and stuff, and we like to do shout-outs and everything. And we've talked about, now that we have merchandise, you know, we can do giveaways. So I guess be looking for that to start coming up soon because we haven't, it's something that we're talking about.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I'll keep listening, that's for sure. Amanda and Shannon, thank you so much for coming on to your podcast or mine. I really appreciate it. I think we covered a lot, and I spoke entirely too much. But I love the show as much as you do, so... So if you ever need a General Hospital nerd on the show, let me know. I'll be glad to join in.
No, but I mean, and this is kind of what we were talking about, that, you know, sometimes you just go with it, and this is when you have the episode that's an hour plus, and it's fine because it's been a fun conversation. So
yeah.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, thanks, and thanks to everyone listening to your podcast or mine. We'll be chatting soon.
All right.
So that's it. We hope that you enjoyed our conversation with your podcast or mine. Maybe you have some new podcasts that you'll want to check out and know a little bit more about us. Join us on Monday as we do the weekly recap.
Have a good weekend, and we'll meet you at the pier.
Bye.
Bye. If you enjoyed today's show, we invite you to go to pier54podcast.com to subscribe on your favorite platform. Don't forget to leave us a review.
And you can also follow us on many social media channels. Just search for Peer 54 Podcast. Also, we are not perfect, so if there is something that we missed or messed up, just let us know by emailing us at peer54podcast@gmail.com.